And we are live. It's Dr. Justin Marcagiani with Amanda Bobbett from Healthy Hydration. Today, we're going to be doing a podcast talking about hydration. We're going to be talking about all aspects of water, hydration, alkalinity, molecular hydrogen in water. So we're going to really dive in and just have a good conversation back and forth on this. Amanda, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited and pumped up for this. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, first off, anyone that comes into kind of the natural health space, and you came in from the water aspect. So tell me about a little bit about your health journey. Like, what was your health like before, and how did you make this kind of transformation to this part of the natural health world?
Yeah, it's quite the story. When I was about 21, I got diagnosed with mercury poisoning, adrenal fatigue. I went on and I lost my female cycle for 8 years. I was told I'd
Wow.
never have kids. I was depressed and very, very, very overweight. And so, long story short, 8 years in this very uncomfortable body, I kept searching for things, trying to figure out what was
Mhm.
wrong with me. It was doctor after doctor, pill after pill. I was the mystery patient. Nobody could figure out why can't she get help here? And so one day, my grandfather actually heard about this alkaline water technology.
Yep.
Grandpa's really scientific, very skeptical, and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
buy things for health. Like, he's anti-health. When he bought this, invested in this machine, that was like $5,000 at the time. Our whole family was like, "What? Grandpa got this machine? Like,
Yep.
order us one." So we ordered it as a family, and I drank the first glass, and I knew something was different. Because I was tired all the time, I had adrenal fatigue, I felt like I was in a cloud. I felt like I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
really think clear, and I felt like the cloud just disappeared off my brain. I felt like, "What is going on?" And a little before you know, people around me are like, "What are you doing, Amanda? You're losing weight, you have more energy, your skin's glowing. What is it?" I said, "I think it's this water." They looked at me like, "Oh, gosh, water? Really? That's what you're doing?" I said, "Yeah. And I have this machine. I know it makes a lot of water. If you want, just, bring a jug in here and I'll fill you up."
Mm-hmm.
First month and a half, I had over 50 people coming to get this water. They started telling me what it was doing for their health. And I was like, "Are you sure it's the water? Like your arthritis, your headaches? Like, really?" And I started selling these machines. And it ended up, I started going all over the world speaking, and created a really big brand for myself, 12 years in that business. And then what I found out was there was 10 years of research and information that proved there was no benefit to the alkalinity of the water. It was simply the molecular hydrogen inside of it. And so now there's 3,000 studies, 170 different disease models. And the technology I was representing wasn't the best in the industry because it wasn't designed to make hydrogen, it was designed to make alkaline. So I ended up leaving that company and started Healthy Hydration. And now we've been engorging ourselves in this information for over 3 years. And Healthy Hydration operates all over the world. And we're just excited to share health with people, one glass of water at a time.
Good. So let's kind of dive in, right? So, what was your diet like? What was your nutrition and lifestyle like? Because I find most of America, like most of the hydration they consume, it's like just processed sugar, right? Either it's like soda and overt stuff like that, or they try to be healthier and then go Diet Coke, which means they're eating a bunch of artificial sweeteners that negatively impact, their brain from excitotoxicity to their gut, right? Because it's a bunch of chlorine molecules, especially with aspartame or Splenda, if you will, or they're just eating a bunch of, consuming a bunch of Gatorade, processed sugar. And so that's like really bad, right? So if you just get someone and you just do water, even like just junky water and from like processed sugar, like that's one step up, right? And then you have another step up from that is like, okay, now you're actually getting the crap out of the water. You're getting the PFAS out, you're getting the pesticide runoff, the homeopathic residue of drugs, whatever else. Like you have your charcoal based filters and you have like your reverse osmosis. And then we can go up into like minerals, electrolytes, molecular hydrogen. So first off, like let's talk about the filtration. Like what's in, well, first off, people are mostly consuming sugar water. So we got that transition. Was that you? Were you consuming like lots of processed sugar, going to Starbucks, getting your 40 grams of sugar in a latte? Like what was your hydration like before this transition?
Well, diet and hydration. I was a bodybuilder, actually. I
Mm-hmm.
was on stage competing. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're on a bodybuilder diet, you really don't care what you're putting in as long as there's no calories to it. So when
Mm-hmm.
you say
Mm-hmm.
artificial sweeteners, I was consuming a bag of Splenda every couple of
Yep.
days. I was
Yep.
making myself egg protein, gum, 2 packs of gum a day, diet soda pop like it was going out of style because I was hungry and I didn't know I couldn't
Yep.
eat anything. So I went on and did some research later, and I actually created my own sugar brand using allulose because I realized those are neurotoxins killing brain cells. But yeah, I was over toxic. And that's, when my hair started falling out and I wasn't able to go to the bathroom, it'd be a week and a half before I go to the bathroom. I knew something was off. And that's when I started diving into the research and information about why am I putting this in my body? And what is it doing? What's the side effects? So that's what I started. So when I was about 17, 18, I started working out. And then when I was 21, that's when I was like, okay, I'm sick. I got something wrong with me. I look good. Everyone's like, wow, you look so great. I'm like, thanks. But when I went to the doctors and they said, you're gonna die if you keep going this way, that's when I said, okay, I have to stop here. And that's when I became clinically obese. In 8 years, I just couldn't get the weight off, and until I got to the hydrogen water.
That's cool. And so, what was your first kind of transition where you said, "Okay, I'm going to knock off all the crappy diet stuff, all the sugar water"? What was that transition like for you? Were you just going and having bottled water? Were you just invest in a really good filter, like an RO filter? What was that transition for you like?
I would go to the refrigerator and I would just drink the refrigerator water.
So
Or
just
I
like
would
a
go,
basic kind of like Brita or like carbon filter.
and I don't even think I changed it. It
Mhm.
didn't taste good, and I know when I was bodybuilding, I
Yeah,
would do that, and I put Crystal Light in there just to make it taste better. And so I
yeah,
was just
yeah.
drinking Crystal Light all day. I'd also go to the grocery store and I'd get the 1 gallon, bottles of water, and then I'd put it in the car, not realizing, oh, it's probably melting the plastic right into the water. So that was a big staple when I started researching and learning that there's all these toxic chemicals in plastic like xenoestrogens and obesogens and things that I had no idea about.
Exactly. I find the big thing, there's just so much crap in the water, right? If we can just, like with my patients out of the gate, if we can just one, cut out the sugar,
Hmm.
the artificial sweeteners, we can get good, clean, filtered water, get the PFAS, the the VOCs, any of the plastics, the microplastics, any of that crap out. I mean, we got pesticide, 2018 article, half the people in Texas, their water supply is loaded with above the EPA limit of atrazine, which is like a chemical that screws up hormones, right? So we have all these nasty things here. So we get the water clean. And then what was your next step? So let's talk about like pH. So water's got a pH of like 7.5 or so, 7.35. Our blood's right in that area, 7-ish. So maybe neutral to slightly alkaline. Some waters we add in electrolytes. I typically recommend adding in at least a good quality pinch of sea salt. I find a lot of patients are very low in potassium, magnesium, all those kind of things. Those can have a slight alkaline kind of ash to it. Let's talk about what your experience was adjusting the pH. What was that like?
Yeah. So as far as the alkaline water technology on the marketplace, if it's going through electrolysis and ionization,
Hmm.
it's creating alkaline water, but it has no buffering capacity, meaning that when you put it in your body, it just goes inert. It doesn't change your chemistry at all.
Yep.
But if you wanted to change your pH per se, adding things to the water would be a benefit, definitely. Hydrogen water doesn't alter the pH. Whatever pH water goes into it is going to come out of it. So it's really, up to your clients and what they require. But I didn't notice any difference in the change of pH with the alkaline water. It's just that hydrogen that's in it that creates the benefits.
So how are you putting the hydrogen in it? I mean, I've seen all kinds of interesting, biohackers talk about adding hydrogen, whether it's in the form of a supplement, getting a water machine. Let's talk about how does that hydrogen get in the water? I mean, you hear of like, you've heard of like the Kangen machines that will use like hydrolysis that will shift the pH. How is that different than like a typical Kangen water machine?
Mhm. Yeah, so that is actually the company I was representing was the Kangen. I became one of the
Mhm.
top producers in the company. But this is,
Originally.
yep,
So
mhm,
okay, so that was the first kind of company you
yeah,
got in with, and that's
yes,
using ionization
and
to shift the
electrolysis.
pH up.
Yep.
Got it. And then how does molecular hydrogen differ from that?
Yep. So in the traditional hydrogen water, you just have an anode and a cathode separated by a membrane.
Hmm.
It's called a PEM membrane. So you just have two electrodes there. And then what happens is it passes those electrodes and the hydrogen gives off an electron and goes into the drinking water. With alkaline water technology, there's usually electrodes, 7 of them, 10 of them, 12 of them. Water passes through and it creates alkaline water stream and acid water stream. So it separates the two. And so you're drinking the alkaline, but it also has hydrogen in it. The problem is that because there's so many electrodes and you have such high mineral concentration going in, those electrodes will get hot and then they will start to bake the calcium onto the electrodes. And then if people aren't cleaning them, this is one of the reasons I couldn't continue is because there's lots of mold that was building up. I started taking the machines apart and realizing, oh my gosh, my client that just came to me after 10 years of drinking this water has stage 4 cancer. And she says, I've only drank this water. What's going on? And I said, well, did you ever clean the machine? She's like, well, it says it cleans it. And I said, well, it does, but that's not replacing the cleaning that you do every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And she never cleaned it, never had a deep cleaning. So I ended up taking it apart, and it was dead fish smell. There was mold everywhere, black mold. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how could this be? So I ended up taking apart 40 machines. I had a trade-in program, said, hey, bring me the machine. We can upgrade your technology, and I'll take this apart. And I found in almost all of the machines, there was some traces of mold or bacteria. And so with the hydrogen water technology, because that membrane, it separates and it repels those minerals off. And so you can get a lot cleaner water that way too. And you don't have all those minerals that build up.
Okay. So let's kind of talk about the hydrogen in the water, right? So water is what? H2O, right? So you get one hydrogen, you get two oxygen, right? How is that different than your typical water? I mean, are we making it, are we adding more hydrogen to it? Like, does it change the actual molecular formula? What's happening?
Yeah, so it depends on the technology. We have the newest technology here in this unit right here. And what is unique and different is that there is a separate chamber just to make hydrogen. And it goes through a distilled water, and it makes the hydrogen, and it goes across a tube, and it fuses that hydrogen molecules, just the suspended hydrogen, into your drinking water. And
Okay.
then you drink it that way. And so the water you drink never comes in contact with the electrodes.
Got it. And so essentially, the filtration is distillation. So is it heating it and then kind of creating a steam and then collecting the water via steam? Is that how it's cleaning the water first?
Um, no, it doesn't. Well, it does heat. This one gets to 212 degrees. So yes, it does heat.
Okay.
But in order to create that hydrogen, no, it just goes through the electrolysis process.
But through the filtration, it's distilling it via filtering it via distillation, which is a heating mechanism, right?
It has a RO system into it, and so it
Okay,
has
so
a
it's got
tank over
RO.
there. Yeah.
So it's got RO, so reverse osmosis, so multi kind of semi-permeable membranes, and then it's also heating it too.
Yep.
Okay, all right, cool. So you got a couple of different avenues to clean out any of the toxins, and then how do the hydrogens come in again? I know you talked about the electrodes. If you can repeat that one more time.
Yep. So as the water passes through the anode and the cathode, and you infuse that hydrogen molecule into the drinking water. So it
Got
goes
it.
to a separate chamber that's the gas chamber, and it infuses it into the drinking water.
And
So
then
now
is the formula still the same? Is it still H2O or is it
yep,
H3O or H4O or what's happening?
it's H2O with a lot of extra hydrogen molecules, which bond to free radicals and turn them into water.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. And so essentially, it's adding more antioxidant properties to the water, right? Antioxidant means it's a molecule that has an extra electron that is open to binding, and then it has that free capacity to bind to extra free radicals. Is that what we're doing?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And hydrogen has 200 different roles in the body. So it's responsible for many different actions, and it can go, it's so small, it can go everywhere in the body. There's been a lot of information on brain health, people with Alzheimer's. I was fortunate to meet last year in Czech Republic with the number one research scientist, Dr. Professor Oda, and he pretty much discovered hydrogen in a microscope 19 years ago. And he's been doing a lot of research in Alzheimer's. And he
Mm-hmm.
also endorses our product here, which is brand new to the US market. It's a European product. We are exclusive reps for this, but it
Mm-hmm.
gives your body everything it needs to make its own hydrogen. So you take it in the supplement form, not putting it in water because that isn't very stable. You take it internally, and your good gut bacteria that thrive on hydrogen consume the nutrients and then make hydrogen as a result.
Very cool. Yeah, we'll put your link to some of the products that you talk about justinhealth.com/healthy hydration. We'll put a link right down below the podcast. You guys listening, I think the technology and the science on molecular hydrogen, it's been there for a while. It's very interesting. You talked about the anti-inflammatory or the neuroprotective benefits. There are some studies supporting that with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's because due to its antioxidant properties, meaning it's giving up that extra electron to stabilize the free radicals, but also hydrogen is also very anti-inflammatory. Can you talk about how it's reducing inflammation?
Through the same mechanism, because oxidation
Mhm.
creates inflammation. And
Inflammation.
so, yeah, so when you reduce oxidation, then inflammation goes down.
Okay, cool. What other benefits? I've seen some interesting studies talking about how it enhances metabolism a little bit and how it helps improve fat and glucose metabolism. Can you talk about that?
There's several different reasons why it does that, especially like with weight loss with me. 119 pounds and I was 180 pounds. And I literally try my best to, gain weight, but this is my healthy weight. So my body just stays here. But when you have a cleansed liver, your body can metabolize those toxins better. And that's one of the great things it can do is it goes in there and helps clean the liver. Also, when you can get the toxins out, your body is not fighting so hard to take that body fat and store it, those toxins in the body fat. So it's cleansing your system is really what it's doing. And through the Krebs cycle, your body uses hydrogen as, energy. So it's actually making your body more efficient, and it's helping to promote your metabolism.
Yeah, a lot of interesting benefits here. I mean, I've seen there's one study they did on rats where they had rats that had myocardial infarctions, essentially a heart attack, and that they found essentially in the rats less fibrosis and improved heart function post heart attack when they added hydrogen into the water. That was interesting. And there's a couple other studies as well. There was one study in the Journal of Clinical Biochemistry and Nutrition, 12-week study, where they looked at hydrogen-rich water could improve metabolic syndrome. They saw improvements in cholesterol, glucose metabolism, and inflammation. And so we'll put some of those studies in the description down below. People want to look at it. There are some good data on it, and I think it's fascinating because there's a lot of things you can do. I kind of say the first thing is drink water over crappy sugar water, and then get that water cleaner. And then there's other things like we talked about here on the hydrogen side, which I think is another step above. What about just getting electrolytes in? What about getting more potassium, getting some sodium chloride, adding a little bit of an electrolyte support? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea, especially if you're eating a really clean diet, you might require more minerals, and they're spark plugs to life. So absolutely, putting potassium, magnesium, with a great filter system, it's taking out some of these minerals because the fluoride that's in the water, it's a very tiny little molecule, and you need a really robust filtration system in order to get it out. And so when we're cleaning the water that much, if you add in those minerals back, then your water is more whole. So yeah, that's a great thing to do, is just getting more electrolytes, electro energy in your life. And it helps you have more energy.
I love it. Very good. What are the other people that you work with, patients you work with? What other things do you see benefit from a mechanistic standpoint? Any other big mechanism? We talked about metabolism, talked about, I've seen some stuff on athletic performance. We talked about neuroprotective, antioxidant. What else?
The fastest thing we've seen happen is brain health, because cognitive function. As soon as you consume it, it goes to your gut, it produces the hormone that goes to your brain. It makes you very focused and alert, called ghrelin. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely helps your brain be more focused. And that's really helpful in today's world because people are distracted. They're on all kinds of different medications. Energy, for sure. People that were drinking Monsters and Red Bulls and diet pills and all these toxic things we're putting in. Well, all of a sudden overnight, they're like, I don't have been craving them. So that's a really great. Athletes, oh gosh, they're in the gym working out hard, they're recovering faster, they're not getting as sore, so they're able to train harder and train longer. So it's been able to increase their performance 10 times fold. It's just incredible what we're seeing there. Sleeping patterns, how important it is to have good sleep, and it helps your body sleep, your melatonin levels. So that's very helpful there too. Digestive issues, for me, I went a week and a half, like I said, without going to the bathroom. It'd be a week and a half. Ugh, and I'd feel so bad, but I'd be bleeding, and got my first colonoscopy when I was in my 20s, and no problems now. Hydrogen is so fantastic at helping your body release the extra toxins and waste, and helps your body metabolize the food a lot more effectively.
That's great. Very good. And what are some, like, anything else you want to comment on electrolytes? What are some of the big electrolytes you think people are lower in? Do you see it's more just the sodium chloride? Do you see more potassium, magnesium? What are some of the ones you see just more deficient overall?
I think like calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium are probably the staple electrolytes that people, because we have a lot of stress. And when your body's under stress, it's going to be more vulnerable to losing those minerals, those electrolytes. So having your diet, strong in those, having a good supplement you're adding to the water would always increase your electrolytes. So I think those would be probably the staples.
Yeah, there's a couple of studies I want to take a look at. I just kind of talked about a few here a minute ago, but I'm going to pull a couple up just so you guys can see it. All right, so here's one study here talking about fatigue and aerobic capacity. This is a systemic review. That means they're looking at multiple studies. So really interesting. It provides evidence for alleviating fatigue. Didn't really talk about the aerobic, but it talked about definite improvement in fatigue, which is cool. I like to see that. And then also here's the study we talked about in regards to hydrogen water or molecular hydrogen in blood and lipid profiles. This is cool. Talking about our results give further credence of high concentrated hydrogen rich water may have promising effects on improving risk factors of metabolic syndrome. That's the A1C, that's the cholesterol, that's the triglycerides. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's incredible with
Mhm.
someone with diabetes, just giving them a couple
Yeah.
glasses of water and seeing a change in their numbers just almost immediately.
Yeah. And then this one too. This is a pretty cool one. I'll pull this one up here. So I want to be about the science. I want to try to look at things objectively. Here's one study here. We'll go to the conclusion if I can. But essentially, if I can get it, the conclusion, hydrogen rich water, 4 weeks, improvement in mood, anxiety, autonomic nervous system function, and this is quality of living. So improvements in overall good health and improvements in mood and anxiety, which is kind of cool. So our benefits in ongoing stress and chronic fatigue.
Yep.
Talking about further studies, so that's cool. There's some nice data on it. I like it. I like when I see data supporting some of the things that we're chatting about. Any comments there?
Well, along with anxiety comes cortisol and adrenaline, and the fight or flight, and we're constantly in those hormones, and it's very addicting, those hormones, and so your body keeps creating the thought, create the feeling. But knowing that hydrogen is able to help lower the stress response that creates the anxiety is very helpful for people, especially with myself, because I was dealing with a lot of anxiety before hydrogen water came into my life.
Can you also take it supplementally?
Oh yeah, well you can in a pill form.
Like, yeah, how does that work?
So with our tabs here, you just take it internally, and this gives your body all the things it needs to make its
So
own
you can't take it in tabs if you
Yeah.
want. Like, let's say you're like, I got a water filter. Like, maybe I just want to add it to my water. How does that work?
So if you're just taking a tab and putting it in your water, I've actually just got done doing some videos for my YouTube channel on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sitting there, and you are also taking magnesium that's not able to go into other countries, so it's banned, that type of magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sits in there, and it's
Yep.
losing a lot of the gas in the environment, and it just doesn't taste good at all. So it's not something you can, me myself, I wouldn't want to take it every day. Whereas
Right.
this, it's producing a lot more hydrogen in your body, and it helps your own microbiome, your gut, be more healthy. So you're actually creating such a good ecosystem in your body.
That's very good. Excellent. So hydrogen tabs are interesting. I like that. It's really cool because we can always just add it to what we're already doing to our routine. Is it obviously probably a lot cheaper, at least initially, with
Yeah,
buying the supplement? I mean, obviously, you're probably cheaper buying a bigger system, but you got to invest in it, and then over time, it gets cheaper over time, right?
yeah. Well, for what I've been seeing is that the if you go to your city and you ask for a water quality report, they are mandated to give it to you.
Yeah,
The city doesn't want you to know really what's in the water. They're only
yeah,
testing for 91 chemicals out of the 60,000 that are in there. And for my local city here, we have the highest concentration of PFAS I've ever seen. We're in the
yeah.
hazardous. And yet their brochure says we have excellent high quality water. We're proud of it. And then you
Right,
do dig, 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 and you're like, what? You have hazardous levels of PFAS and we're all drinking it, but yet it's safe and it's great quality. What's going
right.
on? Well, the EPA says you don't have to let anybody know until 2029 because that's when this goes into effect. But for now, we can just toxic everywhere, poison everyone drinking it, and not let them know about it. And so I think just getting a filter in your home is the first staple to your
Right.
health. And we do that too. We have whole house water systems that we customize to the specific water that we're looking at. We test it. And those filters last for 5 years or more with no maintenance. And then even after
It,
that, you're looking two to $500 is all to keep going.
and PFAS are polyfluoroalkyl substances. That's essentially the forever chemicals from the nonstick. Like you could think of DuPont with the nonstick stuff. I think it's what's that movie with Mark Ruffalo, the lawsuit one when they talk about going after that company.
The black waters or dark waters.
Blackwater. Yeah, yeah, Black Dark Waters. Yeah. So that's a good like kind of theatrical kind of storyline of how that all came to be from a lawsuit standpoint. So yeah, not so good. Do you typically recommend like a good RO filter to get that out? Is that
Yeah,
kind of what
you
you
have
like?
to. That's really the only
RO.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so when we can do whole house ROs too, the downfall is that it's going to be $20,000-$30,000 later. So we usually say
A
whole
lot of
house
waste too.
RO,
There's a lot of
Yes.
waste, right? Usually 70, 80%. So you're almost better off countertop RO, whole house carbon, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we
'Cause
actually
carbon
use
still gets some junk out. It's still
Mhm.
gonna get some stuff out. It's probably not good enough to be your strict drinking water supply, so have an under the counter RO or distilled water system that's gonna be less wasteful, right? More cost effective.
Yep, and that's exactly what we do. So we have the whole house water system, and then because we have our technology here with the hydrogen, then you just take that water, you put it in the unit here, and then you have RO and you can drink from that. You can put your minerals back in there if you'd like. But that way we know for certainty that we're getting out these contaminants like PFAS and fluoride and so many others that are in there.
Yeah, and how does RO different, reverse osmosis, than like your basic carbon? What's the difference? How's it working?
Mhm. The RO system has a very, very small membrane, and there's this pressure. So the smaller the membrane, the more particles you can get out. And so
Mhm.
it's able to really reduce the contamination of the water. Whereas like your carbon filter, it's just carbon. So you're not pressing with pressure. It's not going through as small of a membrane, but it's able to bind up quite a few of the toxins and the free radicals.
And the carbon's typically coming from like coconut shells or
Yeah, there's coconut shells, and there's all kinds of different
Mhm.
systems out there. We use a nucleation crystallization activation technology in ours,
Yeah,
which also conditions the water. So people with hard water, most everyone has it. 90% of the U.S. population has it,
right.
and it breaks the pipes down internally. That creates pinhole pipe leaks in the water line, the sewer line. You can get a lot of contamination just from that alone. In just knowing that, oh my gosh, all those minerals that are binding in there, creating these, also can ruin your appliances and things like that. So we have a technology that conditions the water, so you don't have to add salt to the water, because a lot of people are adding the salt and they're drinking that, and it's not the best form of salt to be consuming. So we have a special technology for that.
Very cool. Excellent. I'm gonna pull up one. And then how about distillation? How's that different?
Distillation is, like heating up the water, which, yeah, it's very, very clean water. The problem, what I see is most people that do get distilled water, they don't have a distiller. They're getting it from a plastic. I see it in the store,
Yeah.
the baby water, babies, and they're
Yeah.
giving them, and they're infusing fluoride in there too. And it's like,
Right.
it's one
Yeah.
plastic. And because distilled water is so pure, which is great, when it sits in plastic, plastic
Can
is
pull, right?
chemical and water's a solvent. So it's going to leach these chemicals in, and you're actually getting more plastic with distilled water because it's in a bottle than if you would just drink tap water that was in a bottle. So,
So if you get distilled from the store, bring a glass bottle to gather it essentially, not plastic.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm gonna pull up one other study too that was interesting because we talked about some of the neuroprotective qualities. Here's one study. One second. Here's one study here looking at hydrogen-rich saline preventing neurovascular dysfunction. Now, this is a rat study. Take it with a grain of salt, but they have rats that are essentially diabetic. This is kind of cool. And so we know diabetes creates lots of inflammation and plaquing in the brain. So we have these diabetic rats. And when you have high blood sugar, the insulin degrading enzyme in your brain that cleans up high sugar also cleans up the plaque and inflammation. So when you're so busy dealing with insulin because you're diabetic, you don't have the ability to clean up the brain. So and then they added in this saline that was hydrogen rich, and they saw based on its inhibition of oxidative stress and upregulation of antioxidant enzymes, hydrogen rich saline has potential therapeutic value for treating these essential diabetic rats with brain inflammation. So that was pretty cool. And they had this, blood brain breakdown. They had retina issues, eye issues. So really cool. So I like to see the data kind of supporting it. And so that's nice to see.
And we all drink water, it makes up 75% of our body. So yes, food is so important, but yet our body's almost all water. So at least you could change one thing, like let that be the staple of your life. Just clean up your water and see how far that gets us.
So let's say I just wanted to just to kind of dip my feet in, right? I don't want to invest a lot of money into a machine, but I want to just try some of the molecular hydrogen with those tabs. How does that work? Do I put one a day, once, twice a day? What's the good dosage to get a good therapeutic level of molecular hydrogen?
Mhm. Well, the therapeutic level that's used in the studies is 0.5 parts per million per liter.
Okay.
And so the bottle here that you see, this one can get 3 to 5 parts per million. So 0.5
Hmm.
is what you need. This gets 3 to 5. So even just one of these a day is great. The tabs here can produce up to 30 milligrams. So one tab 30, and it stays in your blood for 6 hours.
So you
If
need
you're,
zero point 0.5, right? You said so 30. So like one a day could be enough or one twice a day?
yeah, one a day, one twice a day. We tell people
That's
just
cool.
follow what your body likes. because you can't get too much. That's the great thing about it. If you have too much, you're just going to breathe it right out.
Yeah.
So
What's the
start.
pricing range for the tabs versus like the whole machine? What's the pricing range?
So for the bottle like this,
Hmm.
229 is
Hmm.
the price here, and these are only $60. And
Oh,
then our
great.
machines here range in
Mhm.
price point from 2,400 to 3,500. And we have a whole house water system plus everything, special pack, and we kind of customize things. So it's range from 4,000 to 6,000 typically. So
Do the machines have an RO built into it as well?
yes.
Okay, so you're getting the filtration plus you're getting the molecular hydrogen, and that's just going to go for how long? How long do you have to do maintenance on that?
For the unit, there's literally no maintenance on something like this because of the process that we use. Because it's distilled water that we're using electrolysis, there's no minerals that build up. So you're looking at putting new distilled water in it every 2 to 3 months, topping it off, and then just the normal filters, which you're looking about every 3 months, every 12 months, depending on how often that you're using the unit.
Hmm. And talk about the Kangen machines because you were talking about them getting moldy. So that's an issue with Kangen. So if anyone that has that kind of machine, you got to really open it up, clean it out, right? Most people avoid
Well,
that or don't do that.
you don't know what you don't know until you know, is what I
So you
say. It's
know.
like, wasn't really presented as when we were presenting the technology is like, if you don't clean it, this is what's going to happen. So the unit, the electrolysis ionization process, they say the machine says it cleans it every 2 or 3 days. It cleans itself. Well, that's just flushing acid water through the system, which is not cleaning the unit. So you want to make sure you're putting citric acid through that unit every month minimum. And then once a year, you want to send that machine to Enagic Technology. You send it in to California and you have them deep clean it. And they have a pressure washer pretty much that goes in there and sprays, citric acid and cleans off those electrodes. If you're not doing that, there will be mold in there because I've
Okay.
taken so many.
So most don't do that. Now, why is the molecular hydrogen different than that? What's
Mhm.
the mechanism? Why is that less susceptible to the mold and the cleaning issues?
Yep. Well, for one, because we're not producing alkaline water. When you produce alkaline water, you're also creating more minerals, more calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium.
It's the pH shift that's
Yeah.
making it because acidity actually decreases microbes, right? And so when you're going more alkaline, now that you're creating a more prone rich environment for microbes to grow, essentially.
Yes, that, and you have to have those minerals in that technology in order to create the process because they help create energy. So if you put
Got
distilled water, reverse osmosis in one of those machines, it would do nothing. The water would come in the same way it goes out. It would have no antioxidants into it. So you have to use that. And unfortunately, because you have to have those minerals, you can't get a good quality filter on those machines because you can't get the chemicals out. So you can't. So not only are you getting those chemicals, and when you ionization electrolysis is going to make things more bioavailable, there's potential that instead of drinking this much, chlorine or whatever chemicals in there, you're drinking a lot more because it's making that water more bioavailable for the body. So it's
Awesome.
really not. And now that I know what I know, it's not a good technology if you really are looking for the best quality health.
Right. I would definitely stay up with the maintenance of it if you're willing to make that investment. That makes sense. Well, awesome, Amanda. I'm going to give some information again. People want to dive in with the molecular hydrogen tabs or look at some of the deeper technology. justinhealth.com/healthy hydration. Put the link down below. I think that's really interesting science, really compelling. Makes a lot of sense, especially the hydrogen tabs, at least starting there, trying it out. I'm definitely going to give that a try. I think that makes a lot of sense. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with?
Just that we're able to help you. If you want to give us email, give us a call. We have support anywhere you need it. We can give you a free water report too, so we can actually do some digging and find out what's really in your water. And if you're going through some health challenges, we'd be happy to help you.
Any other good like podcast or blog posts on the topic if people want to dive in more to get more info?
Yeah, actually, I can give you a link to a webinar that we did with Professor Oda, the number one research scientist and doctor. He talks about tumors in there, cancer tumors. He talks
Cool.
about diabetes, blood sugar issues. He talks a lot about the tablets here. There's also a lot of research coming out with inhalation. So we do a lot of inhalation
Yes,
too
I've heard of that.
for brain health. So yeah, if they want to just healthy hydration, we have a lot of blog posts on there too, so they can go there and find lots of information.
That's great. We'll put the links down below in the description and or pinned comment if you're watching on YouTube or the podcast. Awesome, Amanda. Thank you so much for being a part of today's podcast. I appreciate the great information shared back and forth and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.